boundaries protect staff, and they protect the consumers. They protect staff in that if you have good boundaries, if you're keeping these good boundaries, you're less likely to be accused of doing something that's inappropriate, illegal, right? If you're having good boundaries, you're not going to find yourself in situations where you're being set up. If you're having good boundaries, you're not going to do things that get you fired, that get you suspended, that get you written up. If you have good boundaries, you're less likely to get burnt out. We want staff to give it their all. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 2 o'clock till 10 o'clock, whatever your shift is. We want you to give your attention, your energy, your time to our consumers. At 10 o'clock when your shift ends, that's where it ends. I try to get staff to have hobbies, have things that, other things in their life that are important, ways of kind of refreshing themselves. If you have 2 jobs, as many people in this field do, if you have 2 jobs, I beg you, not have your second job in this field. It gets too much. We have staff who give and give and give and give. They can't give anymore and they're burned out. I've been in that situation many times. I dealt a lot with behaviors, in my career. Sometimes those behaviors, sometimes those people who had the behaviors burned me out. I'd find myself lying in bed in the middle of the night thinking about, this person, how can I change the behaviors? What behavior plan can I do? How can I keep his job? It's not healthy. I remember one time I was working with somebody who had really extensive behaviors, did a lot of aggressions, hurt really small people, really vulnerable people. But I committed to changing these behaviors. And at one time, for like 2 or 3 months, he'd been doing great. No behaviors. He hadn't been aggressive. Hadn't had any problems. Going to work every day. No problems. And then one day I heard this commotion out on the work floor. And here he's tipping over tables. He's throwing chairs. And I go out there and, he starts to hit other people. So I have to restrain him. I restrain him for 5 or 10 minutes. And I let him go. He walks over into another room to calm down some more. I walk into my office. And at the time, I'm the director of the program. I close my door, sit at my desk, and proceed to bawl my eyes out. Here I am, the director of the program, sobbing, and I didn't even get it at the time. It took me like 2 or 3 years later to finally get it that I was too involved. I put too much into it. If this guy's behavior was great, I was great. If this guy's behavior went bad, I failed. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I had put all my self-worth as a professional into this guy's behavior. We can't do that. We can't do that. We have to, we have to have a good level, okay? We're also doing this to protect our consumers, of course. It's probably the biggest reason you're here. We want to make sure that we're protecting our consumers, watching out for their quality of life. We want to protect them physically, sexually. A lot of the things I'm going to tell you, you're going to think are common sense. Duh, Jason, of course I can't have sexual contact with a consumer. Come on, move on. You think it's ever happened? Way more than we think it does. It's reported all the time in the newspapers. It's sickening, horrendous, but it happens. We think it's common sense, yes, but we also tend to hire staff sometimes with common sense deficits. So bear with me for some of this, because if I didn't tell you you can't do it, we didn't tell you. And then we have people come in and say, hey, they're accused of this stuff, and they say, oh, you didn't tell me. So I got to tell you. So we're not only trying to protect them physically and sexually, but also emotionally. That's a big thing with boundaries. It's bad enough that we have staff coming and going, and it's bad enough that they lose one of their favorite staff. We also don't need to have them lose their best friend or parent, potential parent. I had a lady I worked with once, young girl, 18 years old. Mother wasn't involved in her life. She had left quite a few years ago. She's living in this foster home. It was actually a group home. And the first time I met her, she was really, really despondent, really, really upset. She was upset that her manager fired her favorite staff. She's not only upset with the manager, but she was upset at this staff because ever since she left, she hadn't called, she hadn't written, nothing. And she said to me, Jason, she said she was going to adopt me. That was a lady who was enmeshed. Didn't really see the difference between being a parent, being a staff person. She probably, her heart was just bleeding and overflowing with compassion. Totally well-intentioned, I'm sure. This girl didn't have a mom, and she said, she's comforting her. She said, don't worry, sweetheart, I'll adopt you someday. Now she got fired, and this girl's standing. So don't do that. We want to help consumers understand what they can expect from the staff. It means we have to be consistent with each other. We can't establish house rules and house policies that, okay, they can only have this much to eat, we can only have this much, and then, we have to go to bed at this time, and there's no hugging. And then we got some group of staff, which, they think they know better. Don't worry, you can have as much pop as you want. You can give me a hug all the time. What is it? This group of staff says they can do this. This group of staff says they can't do this. Guess who they're going to veer towards? The staff who allow them to do things. And that creates all kinds of chaos. And we'll get into that chaos in a little bit. But we've got to be consistent with each other. Finally, I want to help you outline what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. I'm going to give you some real black and white things. You can do this, you cannot do this, you can say this, you cannot say this. Everything else, all the other gray stuff that I don't go over, hopefully you'll have enough knowledge to be able to make some good decisions.